Yo, what is good, everybody, and welcome back to part two of Rest and Recovery during this segment here on KD Multimedia. So, as I preface in the part one episode to this series, I'm just going to truncate to the following sentence. Rest and recovery is something we often overlook and sometimes skip altogether. Full stop. And now, what I'll go ahead and do from there is go ahead and actually introduce Julius. So he's actually been on before. This is my boy from Team Germany. Julius, how we feeling today, my boy?
You're another day, another dollar, baby. We
Yes, sir.
good, man.
Yes,
We
sir.
good.
Love to hear it. Yeah, Julius always brings that energy. That's actually something we talked about in locker room culture. Definitely check that out if you haven't come across it. That was on the early stages, a lower production here at KD Multimedia at the time. But no, I mean, yo, Julius is a perfect person that I have always long revered for his toughness between the ears in particular. He does a lot physically in terms of just training and so much more. But I really wanted to touch on just the psychological component to rest and recovery. So there was one item that he brought up that we'll get into momentarily, which is on resilience. But before we even get to that, Julius, I'm gonna just go ahead and ask you, like, bro, what do you do for work right now, and like, what are you involved in?
Brother man Kyle, it's a pleasure to be on again, bro. I love it. Hey man, yeah, occupational wise, I'm a head of strength and conditioning for a tennis university. It's pretty much a private academy ran by a former tennis professional, Alexander Vaska, out here in Frankfurt, Germany, hosting a bunch of athletes from the tennis world, wanting to make the ranks, man, reaching for the stars, as they say. So I'm the head of strength and conditioning there, going into programming, assessments, and that's the day-to-day business. You know, players come in for 2, 3, 4 week blocks, then they go back to tournaments. So it's yeah, it's the daily business of getting athletes or getting tennis players specifically on their feet and moving properly, efficient, and helping them in their game from a weight room perspective. That's
So
what I do.
like not only were you the perfect person to talk about like the resilience factor that I just mentioned for you the person, but also just professionally. I mean, you're working with tennis players where, in a very individual sport, I mean, your mental toughness is tested probably more in that sport than any of the other. Like, you can make a strong argument for tennis for sure in that regard. So anyways, we were talking about in recovery, and we were exchanging some WhatsApp messages. Something that you introduced, a third dimension here that aligns with the first two, is resilience. So, I mean, we could kind of just talk about that. Like, even if it's a time where you felt like you were resilient, but even how you oversee it on a day to day, about how tennis players are able to be resilient, but athletes overall. We could probably just begin a discussion on that.
Bro, I mean, I was never really involved in tennis, and I never really had much to do with tennis. I mean, I come from a baseball background. I come from a football background, talking about European football, handball, basketball. But man, when I got introduced to the tennis athlete and the game itself, these individuals have to be such durable athletes. They have to overcome on a day-to-day basis on a level how not only from the mental aspect but just the physical aspect. Man, watching a tennis match, watching those rallies, going from corner to corner, hitting crosses, then they switch sides, and then they have to run in to get a volley, bounce that thing over the net, then they have to sprint back, and then they have to do like a little semi kind of MJ fadeaway while they slam the fucking rack, boom, over the net. Next thing they know, they got to do a crossover step to hit the forehand. Like, man, then all these different movements, all done in the sequence of like 3 to 5 seconds. Once they hit it, it's, man, while still maintaining having a strategy in the back of their head. Like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna hit this guy cross until I see the opening field. Boom, I'm gonna hit it down the line. Like, even though they still have that, like the strategy behind it, they still have to be so engaged in the game, moving wise, physically, and that thing goes for like an hour and a half, 2, 3 hours. And I was even not even closely aware of that, how durable and how physical and mental that game is. You
Yeah.
know, so so by that being said, I got so enthusiastic, I forgot your question, bro.
No doubt. No, I mean, it wasn't even a question though. Honestly, it was just really a prompt on resilience, and it's funny. Like you,
Right,
remember,
right.
I remember we were just talking like, however long ago it was, but when this opportunity came up for you, and you're like, yo, but like I'm not exactly like experienced in tennis, but I think what I appreciated because I was able to relate to it was like, I mean, like when I started working at the U.S. Open, I didn't have any experience in that, sport either. But I think what was mutual for us was the ability to bring a brand new perspective to the game. I think bringing the brand new perspective to the game was like really valuable for not only, let's say, on my side professionally, like let's say on the administrative side, for you just like mentally, just like yo, like I could make some comparisons. I'm not too deep into the world in that I will be telling you stuff that you've already heard, but rather bring a brand new perspective too.
And that's the biggest key and the biggest piece that I was able to bring to the academy was the mental aspect of just professional sports in general. Like being able to overcome and being able to endure. And that's the key component when we talk about resiliency, is being able to endure the punches, being able to endure and block off, which that means that is resiliency for me, is someone that's able to let it ricochet, boom, boom. It just bounces and it just, it's like that line drive up the middle that ricochets off my glove, boom.
Yeah.
Setback, injury, lost match, COVID, boom. It's all going hand in hand, where I don't care what sport you play, don't give two damns. If you have that instilled and you are able to endure, you're a resilient individual in my eyes that's able to accomplish anything that it wants to accomplish. And that's what I put my whole heart into. That if you're able to do that, if you're able to endure, let things ricochet off of you, because, and that's what we talked about too, is like that why, right? If you're able to let that bounce off because you understand the deep why of what it is that, like, why you do what you do. Simon Sinek, got me started on this. Why is what resiliency is all built around, is that deep inside fire of a why that then builds that wall of resiliency, because that little dim light is just burning consistently, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's resiliency.
Right. You're peeking behind the curtain a little bit of the next couple of questions, and that's perfect because it does segue into that second bullet point. So dealing with setbacks, you began to scratch the surface a little bit there, whether that's psychological or even physical. It's been well documented on my platform. Like, hey, like, I suffered a knee injury last year. We even talked about it. Like, hey, like, what are some, from home knee rehab type of things that I can do? I remember during peak quarantine last year. And, obviously I've talked about like the physical component, but as far as like just setbacks for you, I don't know if there's an injury that you've had, injuries, and even just psychological setbacks, and how you went ahead and dealt with those.
Blessed enough, I haven't had any injuries in a sense that really that pushed me back a lot from a physical perspective.
Good.
However, my biggest setback that got me mentally was my time in South Carolina when I left the junior college after a year, balled out, hit over 300, made my way out there to go to a D2 school in South Carolina that was ranked top 5 in the nation. I was like, all right, this is it. I'm about to go there for a year, maybe 2, and then definitely going to get this draft going. Long story short, after being the good old recruitment promising process, oh, you're going to be a starter, third base, I was kind of cut to where they said, go back to a junior college, play there another year because you're not going to play on our squad, blah, 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 blah. And not blaming them. It was my decision making at that time, not making the brightest decisions of where I had my focus point, because I didn't have a why. I was just like, yo, baseball's dope. why not make a millions doing it? So, but I didn't understand how hard it actually is to get up there. So I was cut there, and then a few years later, even playing Bundesliga, I played first league in Germany. Then the coaches called me into the office saying, "Yeah, you're not gonna travel with us." And I was like, "What? This is my third year. Like I was a four hitter. I was a four hitter. What are you doing?" That was a setback that hit me hard. That was like, all right, this is definitely not it. Because I had moments where I worked my ass off to a sense where I was like, I was really fired up by Eric Thomas a lot, the E.T. the hip hop preacher. What up, what up, what up? It's your boy, E.T. That's right. Bring him from the bottom, baby. So that was my man, or is my man to this day. And he inspired me. All this shit doing this 3 a.m. wake ups and working 5 jobs while I was in school, like working at the club, bartending, while playing baseball, while coaching baseball, doing all these things. And I was like, I'm not gonna go out like this. I'm about to prove them wrong.
Facts.
So those are the setbacks, like being cut, not being able to suit up, not being able to actually go to college, to a school that I wanted to go to and actually ball out and then get drafted. Then being on the national team 2016, one day before European Championships, being told, yeah, you're not going to suit up. Can you bullpen catch it up? And I said, what? I said, okay, I guess I'll do it. Resiliency. I guess I'll do it because I remember that feeling. I guess I'll do it because I know for damn sure a few years later that European Championship is going to come around the corner and your boy is about to be in business.
Yeah.
Resiliency. Because I want my family to be proud, because I want the people that invested. My parents could have gave a shit about me, but they gave everything for the family, So you have to pay back. You have to recognize real. So those are the kind of setbacks that actually kind of instilled that fire in me and made me push and made me be resilient to this day, until I actually hit something or something hits me that breaks that resiliency. And I think that might happen sooner or later. One day, something might hit me so hard that I'm not resilient anymore until I find resiliency again. Yeah. And so I ain't caught up.
I think a constant in a lot of what you shared was just the notion of betting on yourself. Like I got me. I know my worth. I know what I'm shooting for, and I know I can attain it too. And that is just as much in between the ears as it is putting in the work in the gym.
Bro, that's where it actually happens, man. And the gym is just a place that can actually get you some certainty. If you think about it, bro, you could go 0 for 4. You could go 0 for 4 one night and then say, I'm gonna hit the gym right after you hit the gym. You feel like, oh, okay, I still put in that work. It keeps you on track.
Yeah.
It keeps you driven. Even though you go 0 for 4, even though you go give up 4 bombs in one game, you can still hit the gym. You can still work out, and you're like, yup, I'm still pushing.
Right. It's a haven of sorts. Absolutely.
It's a haven.
Yeah. And I think
it's a haven, and I don't think. Go ahead.
No, thank you, bro. I think that one thing for me, like when dealing with, let's say, that injury setback, I think the constant for me was betting on myself. Like, I will come back in, even better shape than I was before. But also, like, even if it's exterior motives, like Kobe, like I think about like that. Like that's why I wear Kobe's in the gym. Like, if that's like I talked about this with Leah and Shay in my last one. Like, dude, if a good gym outfit is what gets you to the gym, do it. Like, but for me, it was like wearing Kobe's in the gym continues to drive me. Like, that's very much by design. Like there's like in Nike, call it marketing, call it storytelling. But like they have like a Bruce Lee inspired Kobe colorway, and like Bruce Lee is like, just a model for just toughness, endurance, just mental and physical strength. And like every time I look down at my shoe in the gym, keeps me going.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you can fuel off of it. Yeah. It fuels you, and that's all that matters. It's like, what is it that drives you continuously, right? So those are the aspect or the factors that can also continue that drive is something that you can actually fall back on a consistent basis, right?
And that leads perfectly into just this final question here, something that we talked about. So you were talking about like, like what consistently drives you? What, no matter what the weather is, or the money in your bank account, or the resources available to you, what's your why? I think that always remains constant. So that could honestly be a question for us. Like, what is our why? I think it's continuously evolving. It changes every day. But like, what do you think your why currently is for you right now?
Bro, have you ever seen the movie Birth of a Nation?
No, I don't think I have.
So just to sum it up, it's about during the slave days in the South. My man, if you think about the history of just African Americans, man, and if you really like Amistad, for example.
Yep. History. Yep.
We can take that. If you actually look at that movie and you allow yourself to be in an emotional state, and you actually look at that movie, and then from my perspective, I'm speaking from my perspective. When I saw this movie, or Birth of a Nation, and then I look in the mirror, it is so tough for me not to push beyond anything that I can push for. Because if I really think about it, and if you think about it, and if whoever is looking at this is reflecting upon this, that there was a time in this world where if the way that I looked, I could also be hanging from a tree, bro. And that is something that kind of clicked in myself. And that is something that a lot of people, especially like, not even especially, but sometimes even my own family, they're like, you push so hard. You really push hard. And I'm like, because I was in an emotional state and I was watching that movie. And that movie just made that, it just kind of made something happen inside of me where I was like, yo, there's not going to be one day where I'm not going to go all out. Because there was a time where my kind of people, they didn't have a choice, man. They didn't have a choice. And I recorded the saying with her name's sister. She's like a grandmother to us. Mm-hmm. She was one of the older ones from the generation. She's over 85 years old. And 2019, I was there during Thanksgiving. And I asked her, I was like, yeah, what was your first job and stuff? And she was talking about plantations and shit, like tobacco fields, picking up cotton. Bro, what?
Yeah.
So that's something that instilled this crazy ass why. And I have a drawing I had custom made. I'm gonna share it with you. Look at this. Here you go.
Wow. Wow.
Bro, that thing is like a drawing of me, man.
Right. Major depth to it in terms of just like how multi-layered its meanings go.
You feel me?
Yeah.
So, by that being said, my deepest why is understanding actually where I come from. My dad's side of the family is from Camden, South Carolina. My mom's side is from Germany. But as my dad always told us, in this world, you're Black.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I am.
Yep.
And I have been given a blessing. I have been given a gift. And that gift is what you said at the beginning when you introduced me again, is that energy, is that fire. And bro, until my resiliency and until this why and this fire is not being turned off by whatever it might happen in this world or in this life, bro, I'm gonna keep pushing, dog. And I tell myself this every day. Every day, I tell myself this. every day. It's so deep inside, bro, because those movies and those scenes and the history of my dad's side of the family is so real. Man, there was probably, like, if you think about it, there was probably a 15-year-old Julius or something, or a 12-year-old out there that wished he could have did what I do, man.
Mm-hmm.
But he simply couldn't. You know, it was till dusk till dawn.
Right.
Till the light comes up, till the light comes down. You're on that field, man. Not because you did something wrong. It's because that person says that this is what you have to do. Right? So that's deep for me.
That is an extremely relatable mutual point we have, in that in like almost like, if not a mantra, the notion that our ancestry worked way too hard for us to not be great. And I think that is a lot of my why too. I think we can wrap on this. How do people find their why? I think a lot of people our age, honestly, any age, are still searching for that. And I think that I began to talk a little bit about it on an Instagram story rant last night. But yeah, how do people find their why to you?
Don't quote me on this, but I think there's a verse in the Bible that says, "He who searches finds."
Mm.
And I'm a firm believer that, and I'm not talking about searching like sitting down. All right, searching.
Yeah,
search.
Books. Right. Yeah.
Search, Google engine search.
Yep.
I think if you are an individual that is on a level of mindfulness that actually goes through various times of stillness, that goes through phases of stillness, and is in line and is in tune with themselves, that can actually listen to that small voice inside of them that's there, but a lot of times we don't hear it because we are so occupied with so much that, I mean, this pandemic was a perfect opportunity for a lot of individuals to listen to that really quiet voice, that one volume where you're like, yo, turn the TV up, bro, I can't hear shit.
Right.
Right. So that little voice is in there always, and that is how they find it. If they find quietness, if they find mindfulness, if they find stillness amongst the midst of all these commotions and all this movement, that's how they find their why. And I think if you just observe or like look more, first listen inside, but then also look outside and see how can you serve.
Mm.
You know, how can you, with the gifts that you have been given, how can you serve others as well?
Yeah, I think like something that you said was just about like being still, being quiet. Like, and I think people can achieve that by way of being present, right? Because like we were talking about before we hit record, was just like we were always moving at 100 miles an hour. And then, like you said, like when we were forced to hit pause, the world was, that voice really became amplified, that passion voice. And then we had no choice but to not only listen to it, but even take some action on it too, whether it be for lack of opportunities or just a way to utilize our time. Yeah, I think why is something that you do through experiences. The more you do, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you become aware of yourself. And then,
that's a good one.
And then to your last point, like you were just talking about, like, hey, like what can I contribute, right? There has to be a sense of like empathy there, of like wanting to be a part of something bigger than yourself. Well, in what way? Take inventory of your assets. What can I provide as assets that I've built over experiences and being still and present? And then how can I contribute that to the world in a way that is that helps move the vehicle that we're in now to where we want to go. So I think that was big for you to share.
100%, bro. That makes so much sense. You wrapped that up pretty well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, this was good. Like, listen, like it was brief. I know we can go more and more. I think it's something like it's funny. Like we were just talking about a bunch of these different topics that we could hit as it pertains to sports storytelling, and motivation was one of them. That might be the next segment right there. In which case, we definitely bring you back on again. So, yo, I
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
you. If you have any key takeaways, floor is yours. For real, I always try to give the space to whoever I have on for a couple of minutes. So, all yours if you have
At
any.
the, at the end of the day, Kyle, keep doing what you're doing, brother. Keep putting shining that light on individuals that are doing something that they think they can help others with. And like I listened to a podcast yesterday. Nick Winkelman, a strength coach, was talking about the definition of a coach is an individual that helps another individual move from A to B,
Hmm.
that guides, that supports. And if you are an individual in life that wants to go from A to B, find a coach.
Hmm.
Let someone help you. And that could be whomever. Anybody can be a coach. If you trust that person, when they give you a feeling that you can trust them and they can trust you, find a coach and move from A to B. You have so much joy in life doing that with someone. If you find somebody that you can do this with, if it's 1, 5, 50, 100, all the people that work for Nike, they're
Facts.
doing it with Phil Knight.
Yeah.
They're a part of it. They are a part of it. And so see if you can be a part of a collective of individuals that help you to fulfill whatever it is that you're trying to do. And if you need assistance with that, come to No Ego. Just kidding.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure, bro. No, that was awesome.
Like,
Yo,
nah, bro.
thank you for that key takeaway and even just this discussion on rest, recovery, resilience, even that third R that you introduced me to. Yo, thank you again. We'll stay on for like maybe another minute or two, but I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording here.
You're